Hey guys, welcome back to Ace Recaps. Today I'm going to explain a 2024 horror thriller film titled Lowlifes. Heads up, spoilers ahead, you've been warned. The movie begins with a man running through the forest crying out for help. Eventually, he is caught and has his throat slit with a knife. Well, that's one way to ensure you never have to pay for that overdue library book. The next day, we are introduced to a family of four: Keith, his wife Kathleen, and their two kids, Jeffrey and Amy. They are on a cross-country trip in their RV and are enjoying a picnic by the roadside, barbecuing together. Amy has a disagreement with her traditional father and goes for a walk to secretly light up a joint. Because nothing helps you get over a heated argument with dad like some quality me time with Mary Jane. As the family savors their meal, two brothers, Vern and Billy, approach them, asking if they've seen their cousin, who has been missing since last night. Keith tells them that they are just passing through and have no idea where their cousin is, trying his best to get the dangerous men to leave. Jeffrey, a naive young man, offers them some chocolates, and just as Amy returns, the men's interest peaks. When in doubt, offer chocolates. It's the universal peace offering. Unless you're in a horror movie, then it's just a death wish. Keith, trying to protect his family, persuades the men to leave, and they assure him that they won't cause any harm. Relieved, the family continues their journey. On the road, Jeffrey plays a game of Mad Libs while Amy seems disinterested in the trip. However, Keith, her geeky dad, insists on taking these family trips every year to maintain their tradition. Family traditions are important. Some people pass down recipes, others, well, other things. A few miles down the road, they spot Vern's truck blocking their path. Of course, the truck just happens to break down in the exact spot where you can't escape. Classic horror movie luck. As they approach, Vern, holding a gun, claims his truck broke down and asks for a ride back to town. The family panics, and Kathleen urges her husband to drive off. With no other choice, Keith agrees to drop Billy off at their house so he can drive back and help his brother. As they continue their journey, Jeffrey teaches Billy the game of Mad Libs. Billy explains that he lives in an old house with his father and young cousins, who have lived there all their lives without ever seeing the city. As the game continues, Billy notices that the handwriting in the book is eerily similar to his missing cousins. Suddenly, Jeffrey stabs him in the neck. The family, rather than being surprised, is more concerned about the blood staining the RV. Priorities, right? It's not a murder spree without worrying about that precious upholstery. This is when we realize that the family travels across the country, killing people they believe won't be missed, chopping up their bodies, stashing them in a freezer, and eating them. Jeffrey is overly enthusiastic about the cannibalism and even eats the meat raw, while Amy just wants the trip to end. To cheer her up, her mother offers her an eyeball, and Keith suggests they fulfill their quota by taking out the entire family, since it's just two women and an old man. Afterward, they can go home and settle for a year. Because what's a road trip without a little family bonding over murder? We are then introduced to Savannah, a professional archer, and Julianne, who have just sat down for dinner with their old man. Because every horror movie needs a badass with a bow. Move over, Hawkeye. They hear the doorbell ring, and it's the cannibal family claiming that their trailer broke down. They explain that Billy instructed them to visit their home to use the landline, as they couldn't get phone service in the area. Although surprised, Julianne invites them in, and insists they join them for dinner. The family doesn't enjoy the food, as it obviously lacks human flesh, and Savannah becomes suspicious of them. Just as they prepare to grab their weapons and finish the job, they hear the footsteps of a giant man approaching. Julianne's husband, Big Mac, joins them. Unaware of his presence, the family decides to back down for now. Meanwhile, Vern, exhausted from waiting for Billy all day, becomes suspicious when his brother doesn't answer his calls. He suffers from a bad stomach due to the chocolate he ate earlier, and soon encounters a passing cop. When the cop offers assistance, Vern declines, since this cop always targeted his family for crimes they did not commit. So Vern threatens to blow his head off, prompting the cop to leave. This is why you don't offer help in horror movies. You either get shot at or worse, end up in the sequel. Back at the house, Julianne offers the family a place to stay for the night, and they agree. Jeffrey even offers them some of his diarrhea-laced chocolates to make the killings easier, but only Julianne and Big Mac eat them. Amy asks to use the restroom, and Savannah takes her there. Inside, Amy rolls a joint, and when Savannah knocks on the door, she quickly finishes and accidentally drops the eyeball she was given earlier. When she exits, there's a spark between Amy and Savannah, but they are interrupted by Julianne, who mentions that Savannah doesn't really like men. Later, Savannah plays the piano, impressing everyone with her talent. Amy begins to hesitate about killing her. As bedtime approaches, the family is shown to their respective rooms. Jeffrey sleeps in a tiny closet, while Amy is asked to share a room with Savannah. Savannah bids her father goodnight and goes to sleep alongside Amy. Keith, on the other hand, is excited, waiting for the killing to start, but Kathleen begins to have an anxiety attack, worrying about her family's safety. When she starts seeing them as humans, Keith justifies their actions by claiming that these people have no hopes or dreams, so it's okay to kill and eat them. Right, because everyone knows that a lack of ambition is a valid reason for cannibalism. After Keith leaves the room, Kathleen swallows some pills for her depression and anxiety, driven by her husband's cruel behavior. Keith then goes to Jeffrey and tells him to only kill Julianne, saying that he'll handle Big Mac since Jeffrey is still too young to do so. However, Jeffrey, looking for a challenge, decides to take matters into his own hands after already feeding Big Mac the diarrhea chocolate. Julianne is soon seen puking in the washroom right next to the eyeball, and Big Mac rushes outside to do the same. At this point, Vern is sure something has definitely gone wrong, and decides to walk back home on foot. Amy and Savannah start talking, and although sparks fly between them, Savannah is too afraid to do anything about it, so they both go to bed. Amy makes the first move, and soon they are all over each other. Amy then gets out a joint and convinces Savannah to smoke up for the first time in her life, and they both get stoned. In the meantime, we see Jeffrey walk outside the house and take on Big Mac. After a lengthy fight where Jeffrey almost loses his life, Big Mac starts puking again, giving Jeffrey the opportunity to choke him to death. At the same time, Keith walks up the stairs with an axe, and just as the old man wakes up from his sleep, Keith stabs him in the head. He then spots his son through the window, and upset about the fact that his son disobeyed him, Keith and Kathleen ground Jeffrey. However, as Jeffrey leaves the room, Keith gives him Big Mac's tongue as a reward for a job well done. A tongue for your trouble. Who needs gold stars when you've got body parts? Kathleen, on the other hand, is not pleased with this and blames her husband. As she rushes to take her anxiety medication, Keith hurts her and takes the pills away, forcing her to cope without them, even though she just wants all of this to end. Because nothing cures anxiety like being forced into cold-blooded murder without your meds. Amy and Savannah continue making out, and as Amy starts to go down on Savannah, she slowly pulls out a knife. But Savannah freaks out and accidentally pushes Amy to the floor, causing Amy to stab herself in the leg. Note to self, stabbing isn't the best way to start a romantic evening. Kind of kills the mood. Savannah panics and ties a tourniquet around Amy's leg, and just as Amy is about to finish the job, Savannah kisses her on the forehead, making Amy rethink her decision. Savannah then goes out to the barn to get some medical supplies, where she notices the RV parked out front. She goes in to investigate and overhears Keith talking about killing her family. Once they leave, Savannah enters the RV and is shocked to find her brother and Big Mac dead inside. And here she thought this would be just another boring night at home. Back at home, Julianne, who's still uncontrollably puking, finds the eyeball and freaks out. When she goes to check on her father, she discovers him dead and freaks out again. Hearing her screams, Keith drags her out and forces his wife to kill Julianne in front of the kids. Although Kathleen doesn't want to do it, she agrees. Just as she's about to, Savannah shoots an arrow through Kathleen's neck, killing her. Cupid's arrow? More like Savannah's, but hey, it gets the job done. The family is devastated by the outcome of their actions, and Amy blames her father for everything. But Keith is adamant about completing what they started. Meanwhile, the cop from earlier gets a distress call and decides to check out the problem. As they see Julianne trying to crawl away, the vengeful family ties her to a chair and starts torturing her, threatening to kill her sister if she doesn't come out. Jeffrey searches the house for Savannah, who manages to climb in through a window and take the boy hostage. Unfortunately, Keith seems unfazed by the threat to his son's life, leaving Savannah with no choice but to surrender. Both Savannah and Julianne end up tied to chairs. As revenge, Keith goes on to cook Big Mac's hand and tries to feed it to Julianne. Gordon Ramsay would be disgusted. Where's the seasoning? And the human flesh? Horrified, she refuses to eat it, so Keith chops off one of her fingers as punishment. As she cries, the family laughs at her pain. Savannah yells at them, and just as Keith moves on to torture her, Savannah reveals that his daughter Amy smokes weed and is a lesbian. Enraged, Keith confronts Amy, and they argue. Amy defiantly claims she'd rather eat pussy than people. Well, if the cannibalism didn't do it, this certainly will. Time for a family meeting. Seizing the opportunity, Savannah unties herself and stabs Keith in the eye. He pulls out his eyeball and eats it. Well, that's one way to keep an eye on things. Just as they are about to kill Savannah, Vern bursts through the door and shoots Keith. Vern to the rescue. Though maybe next time aim for the head. Jeffrey corners Savannah, but she manages to splash boiling water on his face and snaps his neck. Meanwhile, Vern takes on Keith, but unfortunately, he gets stabbed in the head, ending his life. As he lies there, Julianne escapes her bonds and smashes Keith's head in with a hammer. When Savannah and Julianne finally reunite and celebrate their victory, Amy shows up and stabs Julianne in the back. Enraged by the loss of her sister, Savannah beats the living shit out of Amy. As she chases Amy outside the house with a hammer, the cop from earlier arrives and shoots Savannah in the head. Believing Amy to be innocent, he takes her in his car and calls for backup. As the cop goes to check the RV, Amy seizes the opportunity to run him over. Clearly, she's learned that the best way to deal with law enforcement is to just run them over. Problem solved. The movie ends as we watch Amy light the house on fire and drive away into the sunset in her family's RV. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.